Hello, and welcome to another episode of Thrive Like a Parent podcast. I actually am doing an impromptu. This is actually usually my day off, but I was going to hop in stories and I decided, you know what, this actually is a little bit more long winded conversation. And so I felt that while we've talked about a lot of different parts and pieces of Jonathan and his passing, I don't think that this is one area in particular we have talked about. And so I felt like it was best to do it here in a podcast so that I could explain all the things and talk about all the things and also be able to give you a placeholder to know that this podcast is here for anyone that you feel you should send this to or who potentially needs to hear this. And it's a really, really important one. So yesterday was World Mental Health Day, and every year I post just to bring awareness and remind everyone that they're not alone and that the world is spinning out of control. And I may even read part of this post because I feel that it's so necessary for everyone to take a moment to think about their mental health, honestly, like every single day. So the post says, I should not have to write about World Mental Health Day. My children should not grow up without their father. I should not have to raise my children without their father. No family should lose a loved one due to mental health. But here I am and so many others. This world is spinning out of control and our brains can't keep up. There's so much pressure to do more, be more, and it's crushing so many. I support parents day in and day out. If you're struggling, please don't wait. If you're lonely, please don't wait. If you feel done, please don't wait. It's incredible how often we take care of our exterior, hair, lashes, skin, teeth, etc. Yet so many neglect the internal. Your brain health should be at the top. Spend the money, take the time. We must be healthy to take care of our children. It's not a should, it's a must. I'm here and so many others. You don't have to do life alone. Find the support that feels right to you. I truly believe no parent should do this alone. No one. You matter. So every time that I post something like that, I get a handful of DMs, whether it's thanking me for sharing my story, whether it's a very concerned partner saying, I don't know what to do anymore. My partner is really, really depressed, and I really fear that my partner is going to take his own life. I actually got a DM yesterday from someone's friend, and I'm going to actually read it to you because I think it's a really important one. Hi, Brooke. I know influencers don't usually read these, but I need help. I'm hoping you can help me with resources. My best friend told me tonight that her husband is suicidal, and he means it this time. He's been depressed for years and has brought up suicide before, but is now doing things like quitting his job, telling her to plan for a life without him. I'm across the country. How do I help? How do I support him and her and hold space while recognizing this isn't my life? I'm a widow. My husband died at 33 years old in an accident, so I know what it means to raise a family alone. I know the grief of loss. I don't want him to give up. I don't want her to live this life of widowhood. Any resources you have, any words you can recommend, please, I'll take anything. Thank you. So clearly you can hear within those words the desperation of like, please, like, give me any nugget, like, give me anything to hold on to or anything to help, or like, what do I do? This woman is clearly feeling so incredibly helpless in a situation that is completely out of her control. Her best friend is calling her. Her best friend is probably distraught, so upset. Her best friend probably doesn't know what to do. And it's all around a really difficult situation because there is such lack of control. Now, if I could have controlled the situation, if I could have controlled Jonathan's decision, you better believe I would have. And while I'm not, there's no ego when I say this, but I believe that I am one of the main reasons Jonathan was able to remain alive as long as he did. And that is because I put Jonathan above myself for many, 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 many years. And I thought if I just did this one thing, this would change the trajectory, if I just did that, then it would all be better. If we just moved, then things would get better. Like I just kept going and going and going and saying, if we just do this, if we just do this, if we just do this. And I just kept holding on. Like I literally kept holding on. And it was as if I was dragging a dog on a leash, being like, come on, one more day. Like we can do this. We can do this. And the part that I want to talk to you about today, because I know I've shared like what to do if your spouse is like this. Like I've gone through all of that. And of course I'll say those things again. But I think the important part is actually the signs and symptoms to look for that I haven't discussed in terms of when to take it seriously. Now, I'm actually going to start with kids. If a child says this at all or gives you like a plan, and I don't care how far-fetched it is, of like, I'm going to go in the woods and the snakes are going to eat me. If they have the ability and imagination to build that actual suicidal plan, I want you to take it seriously. Now, what I also want you to do in that instance with children is have a really, really serious conversation with them, because let's be real, like teen suicide is a big thing these days. And we're like a non-topic, if you will. Like that's a really important topic. I want you to take every time your child says that as a very, very serious comment. What I also want you to do is sit down with them and talk to them about, hey, this is what that means. And if you truly, truly feel like that, then we're going to get you help. If you don't feel like that, then you can't say that. But I need you to know it is always okay to say it. But when you say it, I am going to get you help. And the caveat to that is, if it matters most for you to stick to your word, it's then. And I don't care if you think that your kid is, oh, they didn't really mean it. If they say it and you've had those conversations of, I'm going to get you help, and this is what help would look like. If you say those things, you have to follow through. That may scare the shit out of you. That may feel like, what does that mean? What do I do? Take them to the hospital, take them to the ER, let someone evaluate them. And if they really didn't mean it, I guarantee you they will talk to you about it in the ER. And I guarantee you the social worker and psychologist or psychiatrist or whoever meets with you in the ER will help you make that decision and help you find help for your child, or outpatient help or inpatient help, whatever it is. But also it's that experience of your child seeing that you are going to follow through and get them help if they need it. And so we want to thank them. Like, thank you for telling me this. Thank you for telling me this. Praise them. Tell them they can tell you anything. Like, we always want you to be able to talk to us. Always. But for this particular thing, I want you to say it. Never hesitate saying that. But you just need to remember that you got to mean it, because I am going to follow through. And I need you to make that, literally, I need you to make that deal with yourself or make that deal with me and promise me that you will follow through, whether it's an inconvenience to your job, whether it's an inconvenience to your afternoon or baseball or soccer, or an inconvenience to your day-to-day life of having to stop in the middle of everything in the middle of a week and go seek out help. I need you to promise me or promise yourself that you will follow through, because you have now told your children what the boundaries are within that phrase. And if they say it, you have to believe them. You have to believe them. And if they're calling bluff, right? Trust me, they will learn from going to the ER. They will learn from that experience of like, oh, this is what it looks like to gain support. Okay, like, are you kidding me? I may stay here. Like, they may put me on a 72-hour hold, like a suicidal hold. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm telling you, your kids will learn. Or if they're really there, then great job taking them where they needed to be, which is not in your home. Now, on the other side, on the adult side of this, like I've just said in the beginning of this podcast, if I could have controlled the outcome, I would have. And I had to honestly, it might sound super odd to hear this, but I had to release the outcome of Jonathan while we were in the thick of separation. And I had to release the outcome of Jonathan, even trying to think about, okay, my kids are getting older. They're going to see this. They're going to see him laying in bed. They're going to see him wildly depressed. I'm exhausted from taking care of my kids. I'm barely keeping afloat because I am taking care of a full grown man, trying to make sure he stays alive, and I'm taking care of kids, and I'm trying to run a business, and like there was just so many ands, right? This and that I had to finally say, can I do this, and is this a healthy environment to raise my children? And in a sense, over the course of many, many years, had to make a very courageous choice of, am I going to choose myself and the boys and that life, or am I going to choose Jonathan? Am I going to choose his life? Because it was either the three of us to keep him alive, or it was one or the other. It was exhausting. And I don't know if I would have ever had the courage to fully step away. But because I started rising within my own home and doing this work on myself, Jonathan saw a huge shift within me. And I had hoped that he would rise with me and take the time and get the help. And he looked at it as I had gone batshit crazy. Like literally, he's said that to me before. That's what ultimately caused the start of our divorce. He handed me divorce papers, which I think if I had had the strength to do it, there would have been so much more blame that I would have had to move through and work through. And I knew that. Like if I walk away, that means that he may not make it, and try to wrestle with that. Why am I more worthy than Jonathan of being alive, right? Like who's more worthy? Like it was excruciating, and I had to work through it, and I cried every day, and it was a lot for many years to have to work through. Now, I'm going to share some information with you that I've yet to share regarding Jonathan's path, and it also has to do with this DM that I got, where she said this husband has been suicidal in the past and depressed in the past, but he's now saying things like, you should plan to live a life without me, and quitting his job. There is one thing in particular that I can track, and Jonathan had attempted in the past, but through the course of our separation from my mother-in-law has said that he tried many times, but from what I know, he attempted twice. He didn't succeed once, and he succeeded once. When Jonathan moved out of the house, he decided he didn't want our dog Jacques. And this dog Jacques, who is geriatric and I am now lifting, and he's still here, but he's not well. We're running an assisted living facility for him. This dog was Jonathan's best friend. I could literally post dozens and dozens of pictures of Jonathan just laying with this dog. And Jonathan said, I'm going to be traveling a lot for work. I don't have time for Jacques. So I'm going to find him another home if you can't take care of him. And I was like, he's our family dog. Like I can't get rid of him. So I kept him. And then Jonathan attempted the night before the boys were supposed to sleep over at his new house for the first time. And I thought nothing of it in terms of Jacques. And fast forward, Jonathan went and got some treatment. This was during COVID and lockdown. Like my solo parenting journey started during lockdown. 2 dogs, 2 kids, a business, like you name it. I had it on my plate. And after Jonathan got out of treatment, he asked for Jacques back. And I thought a lot about it. Jacques was a huge support to me during that time. And he was just like my shadow. And he still follows me everywhere. Like he is literally sitting behind my chair right now. And most of my clients see his butt in the picture frame every day when I'm on Zoom, because he doesn't leave my side. And ultimately I decided that this would be really good for Jonathan. And so I said, okay, you can take Jacques. Fast forward to the end of the year, and the kids get in the car after school one day and they start hysterically crying. And they said, we said goodbye to Jacques today. And I said, what do you mean? What are you talking about? And like, they couldn't even talk. They were crying so hard. And they said, Daddy told us to tell Jacques goodbye. Daddy is bringing Jacques to live with Gigi. And that is my mother-in-law. And so Jonathan dropped the kids off at school that Friday and decided to drive Jacques and meet my mother-in-law's husband halfway. And they were going to take care of Jacques for the rest of his life because Jonathan no longer felt like he could take care of him. And I am sharing these particular, if you will, stories. I got Jacques back and I was like, dude, that's our dog. You got to go get the dog. And he did. And since then, Jacques has lived with me. But those are the markers for me of Jonathan not doing well without me recognizing it. And it's a pattern that I recognized after Jonathan was gone in terms of getting rid of all of his responsibilities. And I'm sharing that with you because I think that it's something that I missed. And I don't blame myself for missing that because Jonathan didn't pass right after Jacques came back. It was probably 4 months later. But I do believe that Jonathan was tying up loose ends in terms of responsibility. And when I read this DM about this husband deciding to quit his job, that gives me really big red flags. And so I felt like this was an important enough conversation because so many are curious, but no one will have the conversation. So many are interested to know, like, what are serious big signs and symptoms, as well as how can I help? Those are the two things that people ask, as well as, hey, my best friend just lost, her spouse. I don't know what to do. How do I support? That kind of stuff. But if you have someone who's struggling and you find that they are kind of wrapping things up, if you will, getting rid of responsibilities, maybe not trying as hard at work or hoping to get fired or quitting, getting rid of their pets or roles and responsibilities, stepping down from, boards or whatever it is, that is a really big sign. And it's important to look out for those things. And you wouldn't know unless someone told you or unless you read it somewhere or did some research. But individuals who are not doing well really do tend to try and wrap things up in terms of responsibilities. And in regards to that, if you see that, I don't want you to ever hesitate to go get someone help. Like, I don't care if you're dragging them into the ER, especially an adult, right? It is okay to do whatever you can to try and help. But at the same time, the outcome is not your responsibility, which is such an oxymoron for me to say, go bring them to the hospital, go do what you need to do. But yet the outcome is not your responsibility because I'm telling you to go do something to help. Help versus fix, support versus fix are two very different things. Now, what I said back to this person who DM'd me was, there's only so much you can do. What I tell everyone is that spouse needs her own support. You cannot be in a committed relationship with someone who is that mentally unhealthy without you having some sort of support for yourself. And I know that the focus is on the other person, but you are living through it too, and you matter too. And when I finally decided to seek support for myself is when I finally got to the place of feeling healthy for myself, because I was drowning and it didn't make it any easier. Great, I'm healthy now. And, this will make it easier now that my husband didn't make it. No. Like, that's not the case. But you can't forget about yourself in the equation. You cannot forget about taking care of you when it matters most. And as far as someone who is at that point, it is ultimately a choice. And I know that that's a choice that Jonathan made, but all we can do is try to do all we can and then know that we've done all we can. I know, even with the outcome that I have with Jonathan, I know I did everything I could. Like I can sleep at night knowing that. Like I know I gave it my all for 12 years. I know I did. And I know once Jonathan decided to step away from the three of us, I know that his family and his mom and sister, I know that they did everything they could to try and help him. I know that they did. And I would have helped in a heartbeat. I just didn't know how bad he was doing. No one told me. And so while I know that this conversation is super, super heavy, I feel that it is so crucially important. And it comes up so often in my DMs that I wanted to kind of have a bookmark for you, because now when you ask me these questions, I can send you these podcasts. And if other people are going through this, you can then send them this podcast. And while I know this podcast can be extremely triggering, this episode, I appreciate if you've listened. I appreciate if you've taken the time to hear all of it. That's okay if you had to duck out because it was just too triggering. It's totally understandable. This is a very heavy topic, but it's a topic that is taboo and not discussed enough. And because I've been through it, and because I've healed through it, and because I talk about it with other clients, and because I'm 3 years in, and you know, it's not as raw, I'm able to talk about it without hysterically crying anymore. I'm able to talk about it with the sincerity and seriousness that it should have. And the only reason I talk about this and share this is because I know I am not the only one in this universe who has gone through this or is going through this or feels like they can identify with what I've been through. And I can't tell you how alone I felt. Also, because I didn't talk about it. I did not share that Jonathan was not doing well. He didn't want me to. And so now I share, not to gain attention, not to get follows or likes, or like none of that. Like I could care less. This is, if I help one person, if this touches one person who needed to hear this today, then I've done my job. And it's still part of me helping John in a way, because that fire to help him never died, even though he did. And it's still there. And if you have been sent this podcast because you are finding yourself in a very, very dark place, just know you are loved. Know we want you here, and know there's help. And you can make it to the other side. There's plenty of individuals who can't see the forest through the trees, but if you can just hold on, you'll get there. I'm going to share with you one more story before we wrap up, which is again another heavy story. But about 2 weeks after Jonathan passed, I did not share on social media how he passed or what happened yet. And I got a DM from a woman who wanted my help and services, but she was suicidal. And it was honestly the first time that anyone had ever messaged me anything like that in my DMs. And I was like, of all the times for this to happen, right? I'm now so intimately connected with suicide. And this random stranger chooses to reach out to me. And I hopped on a call with her as fast as I could, because she had said that I was the only person she told. And I told her my story. And I said, it's pretty wild that you chose out of everyone to share this with me, because I was just affected by this 2 weeks ago, like to the day. And we talked about her plan. We talked about what she was going to do. We talked about the impact that it's had on me and the boys in that short 2 weeks. And she had kids and a husband, and she had never told them. And I said, you need to promise me something. I said, you have to promise me by the end of the weekend, you will tell your husband that this is how you're feeling. And she didn't want to tell him because she didn't want to worry him. She didn't want to put more on his plate. She felt like, well, I should be able to keep it together. Like, what, like, I feel so bad. This is more burden. And I said, you're not a burden, because trust me, he's going to want you here. And so I checked in with her every single day. And I asked her, did you do it yet? Did you talk to him yet? Did you do it yet? No, not yet. And we talked through some more things. And then she did it on either Saturday or Sunday by the deadline. And his response to her was so loving and so caring. And they were able to get her the help she needed. And I don't know where she would have been or where her life would have taken her if our paths hadn't crossed. I don't know what her outcome would have been if I hadn't hopped on a call with her, a phone call. But it's okay to talk about these things, and it's okay to seek help. It is like, it's so okay to pause your life and do what you need to do. I would say that this is one of the main reasons why I'm so passionate about what I do with sensory and emotional regulation, because at the core of it, it is mental health. It's a different layer of mental health than ever before. It's understanding your individual brain and body. And if you don't understand your individual brain and body, then what ends up happening is try to be like everyone else, or you compare yourself to everyone else, or you think, why can't I do that? Why can't I keep it together? Why are they such the belle of the ball? And all I want to do is go home and hide. And I suck. I'm this, I'm that. Like, you can absolutely rip yourself to shreds. But if you understand your brain makeup, whether you're a seeker or an avoider, whether you're a sensitive or low registration, you can then understand that you're not broken. And then you can do the hard work to empower yourself to find that self-worth, to live the most authentic life for yourself, regardless of what everyone else is doing. And that is where that mental health comes from. Because if you are completely ignoring your nervous system and you're staying in fight or flight, I guarantee you that is going to cause anxiety and depression. I guarantee you that is going to cause chronic health issues. Guarantee you. But if you understand your brain and you understand how it works and you understand how to support it and you accept your brain for who it is and what it is and accepting all of yourself, that's mental health. That is mental health. So never hesitate to reach out. If you are finding yourself in this situation, there are hotlines that you can call. You can go to the hospital, and as a friend and as a supporter and anyone who is supporting someone who is in this state, it is okay to get yourself support. It is okay to take care of yourself. And it is also okay to do what you can to support them, but also release that outcome, which is, again, a really hard one to hear. So thank you for listening. I know this is a whoo, right? Sometimes I come on here and I'm fiery. Sometimes I come on here and I'm bitchy. Sometimes I come on here and I'm this. So today it's this. And thank you for listening. And I hope you can share this with someone who needs to hear it. And until next time, XOXO, Dr. B.